Blog Talk Radio.
Go down, Andre. Go down. There's no point. What does it take to get this fight stopped?
Thank you, Jim.
Save yourself. Go down. Go down. Go down.
You never give me a fair shake. HBO needs to fire you. You don't know shit about boxing.
Then that shows that you're a neophyte in boxing. You know nothing about boxing.
I wish I was 50 years younger and I'd kick your ass.
But you still got 4 losses, son. Easy breezy, baby. You better not duck me, son. You better not duck me, son.
We are the headband. We don't pull any punches. Round 1, fight!
Welcome to another episode of Tough Talk Tuesday, brought to you by the Heavy Bag, www.heavy-bag.com. As always, I'm your host, Lucas Biggers. Alongside me will be Rudy Gutierrez and Robert Alexander. What's going on, guys? We got a lot to talk about tonight. First up, right off the news block here, we have 2 big fights made, which were Adrian Bronner versus John Molina Jr., and Keith Thurman will be taking on Robert Guerrero as of March 7th. That is an enormous card and almost worth pay-per-view money. That's pretty damn good card, and I was expecting Heyman to put up some garbage, but apparently he brought the show with this one here on March 7th. And to top everything off, it's going to be on NBC from what I heard. What is your thoughts on this? Let me come to you, Rob.
Well, he had to make a statement with this, especially all the talk that he's been talking in recent weeks, saying that he's wanting to take on the premier networks. He's wanting to take on Showtime. He's wanting to take on HBO, and he's wanting to bring pay-per-view quality matchups to premier television. So he had to bring his A game. He certainly has the fighters. As you've seen in recent weeks here, he's been actually stockpiling up all his fighters and getting them away from Oscar De La Hoya and Golden Boy so he can secure matchups like this. But it is a big card. It's a huge card. I agree it's pay-per-view quality. Broner's been on undercard of Mayweather pay-per-view. Guerrero has, of course, fought Mayweather on pay-per-view. Keith Thurman is an upcoming star. All the names in this are big quality names, and it's a pay-per-view quality show, so you got to hand it to him. At least he's bringing his A game, but I do see some holes, that could possibly happen further down the line. I think that he's just bringing his best matchups that he has so far to the forefront for that first show. But only time will tell.
I tell you what, I'm one of the ones that really do not like Heyman, but I got to say, I think it's good for boxing if he keeps bringing this kind of stuff towards shows for, network television like NBC. And this is something that we talked about in our interview with Sugar Ray Leonard and something that we feel boxing needs. Rudy, would you concur?
I mean, definitely. I mean, this, you guys, I was reading your texts. I mean, it's definitely intriguing matchups, and I mean, this is the kind of stuff this is the kind of matchups that should be going on in boxing on a quote unquote daily basis. I mean, I just don't understand why these type of matchups couldn't be done, when he was still working with Golden Boy. I mean, I understand there's obviously some kind of business logistics behind it, but I mean, this is what the fans want. I mean, if this is what Al Heyman's going to be giving us, then sooner or later people are probably going to forget of all the negative publicity that he's been getting on social media. But I mean, this is the beginning, and myself, I'm not a big fan of Al Heyman. But if this is what he's going to be providing, then I guess everything worked out well.
I mean, from what I could tell, maybe he's actually has held back when he was working for
right.
Golden. I mean, maybe he was holding back some of his decent fights, and why he's putting up Garcia Salto because he's saving it for when he needs it, Premier Television. But it's hard to say. I mean, he may fall back into his old tricks. It's more of a we have to wait to see type of thing. But regardless, that's off to a good start. The problem now I want to ask you guys is, and Rudy, I'm going to come to you on this one, with all the names that were with Al Heyman, Golden Boy is almost worse off than Top Rank now, with how their fighters go. I mean, Top Rank was already kind of scratching the bottom of the barrel, but Golden Boy really has to be hurting.
I mean, without a doubt. I mean, the shit that Schaefer and Al Heyman did with De La Hoya and Golden Boy Promotions was obviously shady business. You know what I mean? And unfortunately, that's the way it is in boxing, and that's the way how it is in our society. You know, it's a doggy world. But yeah, if you look at it at that at this current point right now, De La Hoya is pretty much, you know, all he has is Canelo. You know what I mean? And you know, obviously, you know, we've all read the you know, what's been going on, and he settled, and he had a court settlement and whatever with monetary and fighter issues. But I mean, I think De La Hoya, hate him or love him, as a promoter, I think he's smart. He knows boxing. He knows the business side of boxing, and I think that, you know, the people who were around him when he started the company obviously were doing a good job, aside from Schaefer. And I think that he could, you know, give him time, and I think he's going to be able to wake up, you know, young talent and who knows, maybe, you know, have more talented fighters than what Al Heyman has right now.
We can only hope going forward. I mean, it's something that has me a little bit worried for the future of boxing, because it looks like Al Heyman's going to own most of it. The good news is Rock Nation got their first card, you know, underway as far as boxing promoter, which wasn't bad. I mean, they didn't really have any top guys, of course, but it was still a decent showing, and they showed that it's not just going to be boxing. Obviously, they're going to show some of their musical talent as well. Rob, what did you think of that card? Did you like Rock Nation's first television performance?
Well, yeah, I liked it a lot because of the musical aspect, and I'm a musical fan as well as boxing. So are a lot of people. I like what they're doing, and signing also of Andre, a superstar like Andre Ward. So what this leaves me to say is that Al Heyman is not going to be bad for boxing. What it needs to be is everybody else needs to up their game, so to speak, and be on that same level. Oscar De La Hoya is out here in a major market with a major name. Jay-Z and his counterparts in Rock Nation, which he always surrounds himself in any aspect, whether it be music or boxing, with big names and the right people surrounding him with it. So these companies, you know, along with Bob Arum and that Top Rank, needs to reestablish his brand. These companies need to go out there, and they're in major markets. They've got notable major names. They got the music aspect and entertainment aspect behind them. They need to go out there and recruit. So it to me, it brings competition, but it brings a good level of competition. It adds a new premier network there now on NBC, which has been running fights just under a smaller caliber. Now it's on a bigger level, and it's on primetime TV. So you have now NBC, Showtime, and HBO. And if they go to war, that can only be better for boxing. As far as Rock Nation goes, though, the card was entertaining, but they do need to build up the brand a little bit. It's exciting to see a fresh new name out there, but it's going to be even more exciting when they get the guys like Andre Ward to come into play. That's when their name is going to be stuck out there with the Bob Arums and with the Golden Boys and the Al Haymans. So all of these entities competing, to me, can only mean it's better for boxing.
Right, but Rudy, well, we got to go to the slimy part of it too. It appears like Al Heyman is actually using Goosen Promotions, Warriors, and there is another one to promote them. So he's promoting them, but it seems like he's promoting them behind the scenes. That's not supposed to be allowed. He's supposed to be a manager and an advisor. Well, he's not even supposed to be a manager. He's just supposed to be an advisor. That's it. But clearly he is something else. That's the part I don't like. Like, if you're going to say be a promoter, then be the damn promoter. Not all this behind-the-scenes type shit. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Rudy.
No, I was just going to say, there's definitely, something fishy going on. I mean, if you read the Ali Act, I mean, you don't really have to be a lawyer to understand. I mean, it definitely, it states, there's that managers can't promote and assume the role of that. And I mean, there's obviously something that Heyman is doing that it's violating that act. But somehow, the powers that be, are getting, are ignoring that. And we're in this is the current state that we're at.
Yeah, but what my understanding of it is Al Heyman's just going to act as he has before, behind the scenes, like he did with Golden Boy. He's actually going to manage the fighters as a manager, and as Lucas said, use these major promoters to help bring fights to his cards. The legal aspect of it is I don't see how Al Heyman can put his name on a card like that, because that's assuming he's assuming the role as a promoter, because his name is on the card, his fighters are on the card that he manages, is just through these different promotional companies that he's working with. So Al Heyman's smart. If there's a loophole, he's probably found it. But because these networks and everybody need this type of flow going, need the type of money that they're working with going, need the notoriety that they're garnering from this type of stuff. They need the media coverage, the press involved. Everybody's loving it, especially with this first card being named. Everybody's fully excited of it. At the end of the day, money talks. So it's a loophole, obviously, that he's found in it, and I don't believe anybody's going to say anything. Well, they're not. They're not really going to say anything about it, because they know if Al Heyman leaves the sport in its entirety, it's bad for business. And the only thing I'm just saying is I don't understand why we should be, as boxing fans, we should not be challenging it. We should be accepting it because it is better for the sport once we get these type of matchups.
That's hard to say. We will end up seeing, Garcia Sulk is not helping the sport, Rob. It all just depends on where he goes from here. Him bringing, fights to NBC and to network television, good for boxing too, but it doesn't seem right. He's picking up all these guys, and obviously he was being a promoter because he was signing with them, and then all of a sudden he wouldn't be cutting ties with Golden Boy. If he wasn't acting as a promoter, they would still be signed to Golden Boy. Something else was going on there. Now, it's so hard to distinguish what he is that That's what I don't like. There's something else going on behind closed doors that is very fishy.
Well, go ahead, Rudy.
Go ahead. Just to add on what Rob said, I mean, I think as boxing fans, us that we pay our hard-earned money and whatever to watch, competitive fights, to watch, pound for pound champions fighting pound for pound champions and whatnot. I mean, I think these are issues that do concern us because, I mean, okay, Al Heyman right now is busting up with a great show, but this isn't going. If he's monopolizing the market by signing fighters left and right, I mean, there really isn't going to be any competition. I mean, these fighters are not going to fight with fighters from Golden Boy or fighters with top rank. They're going to fight among each other. I mean, how many fights are we going to watch between, Broner and Molina? You know what I mean? Eventually these events or these fights are going to get saturated or inflated. I mean, and it's like, all right, I already saw that matchup. What's next?
No, man. That's the thing. I don't know if it will or not, though, Rudy, because with Goosen and with Warriors, he now has about 150 fighters. That's probably more than Golden Boy and with Top Rank.
No, and that's not all to say all under his management. That's not I don't believe that all 100 plus of these fighters under these promotional companies will all be under his management. They're all still going to have their own independent managers, just as well as they do promoters. They're just actively working with.
I'm sorry, the 150 is signed under him, but then he has people under Goosen and people under Warriors as well. So there's more than just 150. You got to think, Heyman has bought people that basically that is slightly unheard of. A guy that recently fought in Chicago, a lot of people aren't going to know him yet, but he's definitely an up-and-coming talent. His name's Jordan Schmell. That's one thing. I mean, a lot of people probably haven't even heard of. So there's a lot of other little guys out there that probably we haven't, quite got the wind of, but Heyman has his hands in a lot of different fighters.
But we can
fight. Go ahead.
We can go all night, with whether you like Al Heyman or not. In my perspective of it, it is what it is. It's a business, but it's also an entertainment business. Al Heyman to me reminds me like, and this is no pun intended because they're, two completely different things, but it's like the aspect of WWE where you have the bad manager that everybody hates and gets on everybody's nerves, who gets all the big wrestlers to go up there and fight for the championships and become champions under his managed tutelage or whatever you call it. It's the aspect side of the business and everything that as fans, as critics, we can get mad all we want to. But as critics and fans alike, we should not be boycotting this. We should not be getting mad about this because he's providing good competition into the sport, and everybody else just needs to fall in line and step their games up. That's what I'm trying to say.
Well, I see your points. But see, my thing is that my concern is that the way how the reputation that Al Heyman has now is where, he's only going to work with certain promoters or certain networks and whatever.
But they all do that, Rudy. They all do that now. And that's what we've been talking shit about in the past. It's not just pointing fingers at Al Heyman. We're pointing fingers at him right now because he's pretty much monopolizing the market. But see, my concern is, let's say what happens, like, say, for example, a Golden Boy fighter becomes the lineal, middleweight champion, and he can't, that fighter right there is not going to be able to compete or fight against
Al Heyman's middleweight champion. So we're going to get stuck again with the best not fighting the best at the end of the day. We're not going to get unified belts. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's my concern.
Okay. So I agree with
you. Yeah,
you.
we still don't. Yeah, because we don't know if Heyman's going to be willing to do business with De La Hoya and Golden Boy Promotions. It's still in the air. The good news is it sounds like they are trying to finally, Golden Boy and Top Rank are finally trying to get together. If nothing else, probably to try to compete with Al Heyman. I don't know if you guys have heard this, but yeah, they have Matisse rumored to be close. Is Matisse rumored to be close with Providnikov?
Yeah.
So hopefully that fight gets made. I mean, that's one hell of a banger too.
And which is one of the fighters that De La Hoya kept from Al Heyman.
Right. Mm-hmm. But that's what I'm talking about. It sparks those type of matchups now. It sparks Bob Arum having to work with De La Hoya. I mean, I agree with you guys on that aspect, is that now we're getting into dangerous quarters to where we're going to have this champion signed by this promotional company managed by Al Heyman that's over here and will not compete or cannot compete due to promotional issues, manager issues, whatever, with this champion over here. But that's the way that the sport has been right now. That's the way that it has been going. So if he comes in, if that's the way it continues and everything, yeah, it's bad that we don't see that. But at least now we have another market. We have another range. We have another network that can come into play and compete with what has already been going on. You would hope the man would come in with an open mind and be willing to take his fighters into other promoters and challenge them. But that's not to say it will happen. But under the current state of boxing, at least we have another name and another network and more matches to see.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, he's not even going to Showtime or HBO. He's going to NBC. So hopefully it just opens another avenue. But we will see. If you ask me, the most screwed piece of this is going to end up being Showtime. That all depends, of course, on Mayweather-Pacquiao getting made. But you got to think about it. I mean, now that Golden Boy is doing business with HBO again, Top Rank never really did business, not a lot anyway, with Showtime. Who's going to be on Showtime? Mayweather? That's it?
Well, you can't say that now because they have the first big show, the first big fighting ways of the new year. So as of right now, they're not hurting. They have a fight with Mayweather, which could possibly be the biggest fight of the year, late coming on, later this year, and depending upon who he chooses to fight again. So as of right now, they're not going to be affected by it. In the long run, we shall see, but as of right now, I don't see them affected.
Well, we will see. Very interesting what the next year will hold for the sport. Definitely got off to a strange beginning, I'll say that, as far as 2015 is concerned. But let's go ahead and go on to this weekend's fights. First off, Friday Night Fights is getting off to an amazing start. This weekend, we have Peter Petrov, who was one of the winners of Boxino from last year, taking on Hammer and Hank Lundy. And that's only the co-main. Then we have Willie Monroe taking on Brian Vera. That's one hell of a card for Friday Night Fights. And I'm going to come to you first, Rob. Peter Petrov's one of those hard-fighting, just come-at-you type Russian knockout artists. And then you have, Hank Lundy, who tries to box, but he can bang. How do you see this one going?
Well, first of all, just to speak on the card, both Petrov and Willie Monroe came from Boxino. And Boxino had rave reviews all across the board last year when ESPN decided to bring that tournament out because of the level of competition, because of these two men and the level of competition and professionalism that they brought. So I tell our listeners right now and any boxing fan out there, do not sleep on this card because you have two very good up-and-coming names against two very good, tough, balls-to-the-wall type fighters in Brian Vera and Hank Lundy. It's going to be a great card, period. Don't blink. As far as Petrov in this fight here, I feel that, like you said, he's a hard-hitting guy, and he likes to go toe-to-toe. Man, I kind of got blindsided here by something. Who's he fighting again, Lucas? I'm sorry.
Petrov versus Hank Lundy.
That's right. I'm sorry. The reason why I'm thrown off there is because Lundy just fought. So that's the point I was trying to make. Lundy needs a win here because he just fought a highly contested fight against Delorme, and he lost that fight, and a lot of people believe he came back and won it. Petrov isn't going to outbox him. It's going to be a toe-to-toe type of fight. And the things that I've seen in Hank Lundy coming in that Delorme fight was that now I feel that he's not wanting to back off like you've seen in the past, especially when you've seen him against John Molina Jr. He's not wanting to back off. He's willing to take the shots. Now, let's face it, against a guy like Delorme, I don't feel like he felt Delorme could go toe-to-toe with him and knock him out. And that was a very tough loss for him. So I think that Hank Lundy is going to be wanting to push the pace. With that being said, Petrov is a very tough fighter, and he can go to the technical side when need be. So really it's a toss-up. I'm leaning towards Petrov just because of the mere fact that Hank Lundy just fought recently, just is coming off of a loss, and that can get a fighter down. We know that Hank's mentality is always going to be in there, and he's always going to be in the fight. But pushing this style of a fight again for him and not owning on his skills or his technical work, it to me hurts him. So I like Petrov in this fight and him to get the edge. And I'm going to surprise y'all by saying this, but I think that Lundy in this fight is going to go all out. So I do believe that Petrov is going to be able to knock him out in the late rounds. I'm predicting an 8-9 round stoppage for Petrov.
Wow. All right. Rudy, let me come to you before I give mine.
I mean, it's definitely a tough fight. I mean, Petrov, we see what he did in Boxino, and you know, he has that, you know, typical Russian style. You know what I mean? They're relentless, they're fearless, hard punchers. They could take a punch. And we all know, you know, what Lundy offers. You know, he has good boxing skills, not afraid to duke it out and go toe-to-toe, which sometimes is what gets him in trouble. And I totally agree with what Lucas said. I mean, Lundy needs a win desperately, you know what I mean? And if Lundy's going to shine any moment, I mean, this will be his time to shine, you know. We've had him on the show a couple of times, and, you know, he's stated numerous times that he wants a world title, and I think that a victory this Friday against Petrov can obviously lead him to that route. And, I mean, it's a tough fight, you know, but going by Lundy's past performances and you know, even the luck that he has, he fails to sometimes win over the judges. I mean, I got to give the slight edge to Petrov.
And I think we're all kind of seen it the same way here. Not only that, but I mean, Lundy didn't even really get a good. Yeah, I mean, we'd all seeing the same thing because it's just one thing if Lundy was completely healthy, but he just got out of a knockdown, drag-out fight, and he's going to go right back into another one. I know this guy's a gym rat, and he's constantly working. He's one of the hardest working boxers that I know. I mean, this dude's always ready for a fight, and he wouldn't take the fight if he wasn't completely ready, and he felt that way. However, your body needs that rest. Now, do you need 6 months rest before every fight? No, Mr. Mayweather and Pacquiao, but it is definitely something that is needed, and I don't know if his body's completely recovered. And we all saw what happened with Delorme. I mean, he came back, don't get me wrong, he did, but I see Petrov walking him down and probably knocking him out. I'd say late rounds. I kind of mimic what Rob said here and go with 8. That sounds just about right. Love Lundy, if he was healthy and back on his game again, I would give it to him and say he could eke out the decision, but it's going to take a lot of boxing, and Lundy, if he's going to win, is going to have to stay on his horse and on his boxing skills and refuse to allow himself to get caught up in trading. If he gets caught up in trading, he will hit the canvas more than once. So if he's listening, no disrespect, but stick to boxing is what you do best. As far as Brian Vera versus Willie Monroe, this one's kind of hard for me. I mean, both are good fighters, and both have kind of poor showings last time out. Rob, what's your take on that one?
Well, Brian Vera just hasn't been the same since that second fight with Chavez. You can almost say it hasn't been the same since the first fight, because that fight he was brilliant. And then ever since then, he's been off his game several times now. And I am even going to throw in the loss against Rosado in BKB, because let's face it, that was right up his alley and something that I definitely felt he should have won. So I don't know if it's just a mental breakdown here as of recently with Brian Vera, or if it's a training issue right now. It's definitely something, and he's got to get it together. Will he get it together for this fight? I mean, I hate to say it, but this is a nightmarish stylistic fight for Brian Vera. He's going up against a guy who's young in his career, who's very, very technical, very boxing oriented, and has went up there in competition at an early career and fought some guys that are looking to knock his head off, that do have the same style as a Brian Vera. And they were unable to walk guy down, and they were unable to make anything meaningful out of those fights. And I don't see, as of late, I don't see anything that screams out to me that Brian Vera can do that. And if he's going to beat Willie Monroe, that's what he needs to do. He needs to be able to cut off that ring. That's the single most important thing to do against fighting a guy like Monroe, is to be able to cut off the ring and take the fight to him. So that being said, I mean, it's a nightmare of a style clash for Brian Vera. And this very well could be the one that sparks the change in his camp and in his life. Because I don't see him coming out with the win on this one. I see him getting decisioned. I think he'll put up a spirited effort, but it's going to be a lack of cutting off the ring and getting to Monroe that's going to hurt him. And Monroe's going to get the unanimous decision. And hopefully after this, Vera looks in the mirror and decides to make some changes with his life, with his camp, so that way we can see the Brian Vera that we all know. If you said it was a few years ago, like 2 years ago, I would be picking Brian Vera, no doubt. But it's not the same Brian Vera. He hasn't made any necessary changes, at least that I'm aware of, to make me think otherwise. I think he's going to get a unanimous decision against him.
I'm going to kind of mimic you here because the way I look at it, as you said, a big part of it is if Brian Vera can cut off the ring. If Willie Monroe was hard to find and, some good technical boxer, maybe I'd be a little bit worried and I'd pick against Vera. But in this case, I can definitely see Vera able to find him easily, cut off the ring. He's not much of a mover, so, and of course Vera's shots always land with some thud to them, so it's definitely more pleasing to the eye than Willie Monroe's. I expect him to get a decision. It'll be a close fight, though. I'm going to say split, maybe majority, but I don't see him walking away with a unanimous decision. It'll be a really close fight, but I'll give this one to Vera. Rudy?
I mean, guess it's unanimous. I mean, you guys, just, I don't want to sound redundant, but I mean, you guys pretty much hit all the main points.
I mean, I went for Monroe. No,
okay,
I'm not. Sorry, Rudy. I'm not going for Vera. I'm going for Monroe.
Oh, okay.
I'm confused then because I thought you said Vera too. I was
said I do not see Brian Vera. I see him getting unanimously decisioned.
Oh, so
that's really,
you see Monroe out by.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I don't see Vera being able to cut off the ring. And like I said, hopefully after this one, it sparks a change in his regimen. It sparks a change in his training or coaching because, like I said, 2 years ago I would pick Vera, but now I can't see it happening. I think Willie Monroe is going to get a unanimous decision.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, then I guess I'm the tiebreaker, and like I was saying, I mean, you guys pretty much hit all points. Like Rob said, Vera hasn't been the same ever since that first fight against Chavez. But this fight against Monroe, this fight can pretty much be a do or die fight for Vera's career, and I'm pretty sure he knows that. His team knows that, and I'm go with Vera. I think Vera's gonna have that pressure in him, and if he wants to, be relevant in boxing in his division, he's gonna have to get a win yesterday. You know what I mean? So I think with that added pressure, I mean, if he's healthy, if he's had a good camp and he fights smart, he could get the victory, and I don't see why not.
All right. Now, of course, we do have the Showtime card as well. Leo Santa Cruz taking on Jesus Ruiz. Say what?
Taking on his next door neighbor.
Well, I'm going to let you have that one first then, Rudy.
I thought they were cousins, Rudy.
Hey, they probably are, man.
I thought they were cousins by marriage or something like that.
I don't know much about that other kid, but I mean, they're not doing any favors to Santa Cruz's career at this point.
I gotta agree with you there. I mean, I don't understand the pick. I mean, I don't know if it's just because Heyman has left him so high and dry. Is Santa Cruz still with Golden Boy, I take it?
Yeah, he's one of the 4 fighters that stayed with De La Hoya. I believe it's Santa Cruz, Lucas Matisse, and I know it's 2 other guys. Oh, Amir Khan and some other guy. So those are the only. I believe it's 3 or 4 fighters that still work without Heyman as their manager, but have a legal contract with De La Hoya.
Right.
Okay.
But I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It's all right. I mean, this is Jesus Ruiz. He's 33-5. where he came from. I mean, I've never heard of the guy. He's 25, but he definitely has some fights under his belt for how young he is. 33-5-5. So the guy has some experience, but it's just such a weird pick. I think it's now that Oscar De La Hoya is in such need of fighters that this fight is happening, and probably Santa Cruz wanted to get back in the ring. Nothing else more than a tune-up fight, but supposedly he's been asking for Rigondeaux. Hopefully that happens, because I can't stomach a whole lot more Santa Cruz Ruiz. We're not even going to go with predictions on this one, but go ahead with what you were going to say, Ro.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I was going to say. He's been sitting here calling out Rigondeaux for the last couple of fights now, and he's wanting to focus solely on him, because I haven't heard him call out anybody else but Rigondeaux. So if he wants that fight, then show us that you're willing to take bigger risks instead of coming up against a guy like this, or at least knock this kid out in the first couple of rounds. Because the fight's already going to be an afterthought, and finally challenge Rigondeaux and get that fight made right after this one, because this fight don't even make sense. It don't even make sense the type of card that it's on. Here we are seeing the big boys fight for a world title, or for the heavyweight title, and then we got Leo Santa Cruz throwing in with Ruiz, which, like you said, Lucas, he's over 30 fights in his career, but he's only 25. So, and who are those opponents that he's fought? Nobody knows. So it's like they picked this guy out of a Cracker Jack box and said, "Here you go, Leo. Here's your fight." So that's really all I'm trying to say here is you're going to win the fight. Make it look good. Make it look pretty. And make that fight happen with Rigondeaux after this one, because fights like these don't even need to be on a card.
I mean, I got 2 points, that I want to express on this. I mean, obviously, if you're a Leo fan, obviously it's getting difficult to defend him. You know what I mean? But I mean, we still got to remember, last year Dan Rafael, he busted his journalist skills, and he pretty much showed us what an Al Heyman contract looks like. And it doesn't really matter whether the fighters want to fight, King Kong or Mike Tyson or whoever. If you sign with Al Heyman, and if Al Heyman says no, then it's no. You know what I mean? In that aspect, I guess, I guess you could defend Leo. Maybe his challenges are legit. Maybe he really isn't afraid of Rigondeaux. Maybe he really does want to fight him. But because he's stuck with a manager that has, pretty much 100% control of what the fighter is going to do in the ring, then, I mean, there goes that argument. I mean, and second, I mean, it's true, once you're in the ring with an opponent, I mean, it's boxing. One punch can make a difference, can change a fight. You know what I mean? Leo Santa Cruz has been going on in a lot of interviews, and he's said it personally that he's tired, of going on his Instagram, on his Twitter, and reading and seeing all the, cherry picking comments and calling him a chicken and this and that. And he's saying that he's tired, that he's not afraid of it, that he wants Rigo, but that, right now he has this guy in front of him and that he's taking him serious. I mean, it is what it is, but definitely the people, the orchestrators of his career are not doing him any favors. If De La Hoya is going to keep him, and, it's going to dictate who Leo Santa Cruz fights in the next year. If De La Hoya wants to do him any favors, he has to put him in the ring with Rigo. Win or lose, that fight will escalate Santa Cruz legacy. We'll pull it up his stock up because at least he fought against the best 122-pounder. You know what I mean? Right. We're in a stage of boxing where people are putting so much weight on undefeated records. Undefeated records don't mean shit if you're not fighting the best fighters. You know what I mean? If you have a blemish against the pound-for-pound king, fuck it. You lost. You lost against the best. You know, you prove, but you went there. You proved that you have the balls and that you have the skills to go up against the best of your division. And if Oscar De La Hoya really cares about Leo Santa Cruz, after he beats the shit out of this Reeves guy, he has to put him in there with Rigo. There's no other option for him, in my opinion.
I gotta agree with you, and I would say the same after that fight does happen, or if it's not going to happen. I think Rigondeaux has to move up. What are you going to do? You know what I mean? You've got to find other opposition. People are already calling you boring. HBO doesn't want to mess with you, and I like the guy. I mean, I like his fights personally. I will watch him, but I can see how some people don't necessarily want to watch him. I want to watch the best, though. I mean, the guy's the best. You've got to watch him. His skills are phenomenal, but he has to go against competition. I mean, if he's the best fighting a whole bunch of nobodies, who cares? You know what I'm saying? It has to change. So hopefully we can get some more fights flowing between Top Rank and Golden Boy, and we can make that fight happen. Maybe even on the undercard of Provodnikov Matisse, or shit, it could headline that, and Matisse, Provodnikov be the undercard. Whatever, I don't care. As long as that happens, that's just as good as card as what Heyman's bringing on March 7th in my eyes, if not better. So it's just food for thought. But in the main event, we at least have a decent scrap for the first time in a long time for the heavyweight division. Bermane Stiverne, who beat the crap out of Arreola twice, and now has the WBC belt, will be taking on hard-hitting American Deontay Wilder, which everybody he's met, he's KO'd. So that's the scary point that I've been trying to run through my head. And Bermane Stiverne is a very durable guy, though. Hard for me to see him get knocked out. And I've also seen some tapes of Wilder getting knocked around by Hay and being dropped in the amateurs by a much smaller guy. This one is really hard, guys. I almost am leaning towards Stiverne, if for no other reason than simply experience. Wilder is highly inexperienced, even though he has 32 fights. It's been he doesn't really have any names or any guys that had much threat in the first place. So this is really hard for me. I think I'm going with the upset here. I think Stiverne catches him. I'm not calling Wilder a Seth Mitchell, but I think he may not have the best chin in the business. It hasn't really been tested yet, but you can be sure I think Stiverne's at least going to land something. I'm willing to bet that he can hurt him. The only problem is the height, so I'm still going to stay with Stiverne. I'm going to keep my choice there. But Rob, we're saving you for last on this one because I already know you're going to have a decent opinion on this fight. But Rudy,
you know what? I mean, I'm excited for this fight, to be honest. I mean, I told you guys, a couple of days ago, I'm so excited I even had a dream about it. I dreamed I was sitting ringside and Wilder dominated Stiverne first round. Second round came out and got his head knocked off by Stiverne. But I mean, this fight, I mean, it's a very intriguing fight because you have experience versus, youth. I mean, I'm not saying that Stiverne is super old or whatever, but I mean, you have Wilder that represents this new, generation of boxers. I mean, this guy is a complete athlete. I mean, he's huge. He's strong. He has the height for his advantage. But that doesn't necessarily win you boxing matches. You know what I mean? And Stiverne is a solid heavyweight. Sure, both fights he fought with Arreola, he did get caught, and Arreola did hurt him at certain occasions in the fight, but he was able to brush that off and overcome adversity. And in my opinion, that's what makes Stiverne a lot more dangerous. I mean, we can't say the same about Wilder because Wilder really hasn't faced any opposition that has tested him. You know what I mean? We really don't know how good his chin is. We know how good his power is and how big that, right hand, straight right he has, but we really don't know how is he going to react once, somebody that has good pop in their hands lands one in the chin. And, just going by both resumes, I mean, I got to favor Stiverne, and I'm going to go with my good feeling and with my dream.
It's 2 for Stiverne. I'm actually kind of surprised by that. So, are you going to be the upset here, Rob? Go ahead and give us your take.
Well, first of all, let me put a take on Rudy's dream here. Speaking from someone who has a dream every time before a Miguel Cotto fight. Miguel Cotto winning, dominating and knocking out opponents after every fight. Sadly, I've been heartbroken and those dreams have not came true a couple of those times. So that right there is something of note. Let's face it, guys, people are calling Stiverne in this fight the underdog, and they're saying that if he wins, it's an upset. It's not. Stiverne is the champ. He's a true champion. He fought his way to the title. He didn't garner the respect. He didn't fight nobody. He didn't knock out 32 people in a row with no names. So he's earned that. He's earned that resume. He's earned that title as a WBC champion. He hasn't ducked anybody in his career. He's been heavily ducked by Klitschko anyway. So I really don't think that it's an upset for Stiverne. I really think that Stiverne should be the one in this that has the nod. Because in 32 fights with 32 knockouts, Deontay Wilder hasn't been past the 4th round. This guy hasn't even been past the 4th round. So no, nobody has chin checked him, so to speak, yet. We don't know how good his chin is. We don't know how good of a boxing skill this guy has because he's only been in 4 rounds and he's knocked guys out repeatedly within the first couple of rounds with one punch, I might add. So we don't know how good of a boxing skill he has. We don't know about his stamina. We don't know about his conditioning. All these things, to me, make very good points why you both should pick Stiverne. And that's the big interesting concept in this fight. With that being said, this fight right here can single-handedly catapult Deontay Wilder to the biggest American heavyweight prospect to come out of here in years. And how he handles this fight and how he wins can do just that. And that's why it's the most important fight this year so far. It's not at the end of the year. It may not be the most important fight at the end of the year. We're going to see a lot more matchups. But this fight, especially in that division right there, the heavyweight division, let's face it, that's our father's division. You know, that division has single-handedly carried the sport of boxing for years. And now it's been dormant. So it's absolutely exciting to have this matchup right here because we have 2 fighters in the heavyweight division that belong there and belong on that stage. They both belong to be champions. With that being said, you know, I feel like I kind of set myself up for this pick because I gave all the pros for Stiverne. And you know, the cons really are being that he was hurt against Ariola. You know, he is the smaller fighter in this one, you know, and he's the underdog. But with that being said, there really, other than the power, are no pros to Wilder that we can say because all we've seen is his power. But I'm picking Wilder because I feel that I feel that power that he has can transcend the world, just as Mike Tyson did. I feel that he has that world-beating power that can beat anybody he faces at any time with one punch. And to me, Stiverne is durable, but his chin is just going to collapse. I don't even think Klitschko has felt power like this guy has. I think, and you can quote me on this, and we'll come back to the tape when Saturday night is over. I'm calling it right here. I think Deontay Wilder is the most powerful fighter in the world, period. And I think he's going to prove that on Saturday night with one punch. And it's going to end early, unfortunately, because the fans are going to want to see him tested. But it might not end as early as it has before. I'm picking 5th, 6th round knockout for Deontay Wilder. Just on that factor alone, I think he is the most powerful man in the world. And he's going to prove that on a Saturday night.
All right. I mean, I can't disagree with you. I'm not a big fan of Wilder's, but I'd like to see an American hold the title again and, you know, bring some exciting fights back to the States, especially heavyweights. But let's go ahead and go on in the show here. Rudy,
oh, wow.
Do you have any fighting words? You were what?
I would have definitely suspected you to question that pick.
I'm not going to question. I mean, I can see why anybody would pick Wilder, but I went against him simply off too many unknowns. I mean, he's been so stubborn so gifted with his knockouts that what happens if the knockout doesn't come? What does he do? How does he act? We don't know. How does he act when he gets hit? We don't know. And Las Vegas clearly also doesn't know. It's a very close fight, and they have the odds very close. Stiverne is the underdog, but it's very slight. So we're not the only ones that see it being that close of a fight either. A lot of people aren't buying into Wilder's hype, Rob. But I'm not really going to fault you on it. I mean, let's face it, Stiverne has lost to some relatively unknowns as well. So, he lost to one and drew with another. So it's questionable on both sides. It is a hard call with this fight. But, Rudy, did you have any fighting words for tonight?
Well, I don't have any fighting words left, but, I mean, I do think we can't end the show without obviously mentioning or talking about, you know, what could probably be one of the biggest fights, which is Floyd Mayweather versus Pacquiao. And I'm going to read a quote. I can't pronounce his name, but it's Pacquiao's advisor, Michael Canucks. I don't know.
I'd say Conks. I don't know if that's right.
All right. Well, he gave an interview. He gave an interview to Ring TV magazine, and this is, and I'm quoting. We've agreed to the terms, and once Floyd signs off, then the fight is on May 2nd. Discuss any of the terms. I can't discuss what went on during our conversation. All that I can disclose is that we've agreed with Floyd's representative, and that now we're waiting for Floyd. So pretty much, you know, if you want to take that as this is the fighting words, I mean, I hope this fight gets made.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because I had kind of completely left that out. I got too much into the Al Heyman stuff in the beginning, but you know, it's not a lot. I don't want to get my hopes up for it, and it's always been up to Mayweather to sign. I mean, and that's the thing that doesn't get me. It's like the people who say Pacquiao's ducking Mayweather, that whole concept doesn't make sense to me. I mean, everybody's chasing Mayweather. There's somebody who wins their first fight, calls out Mayweather. It's a lottery ticket. So how would Pacquiao not want it? Everybody wants Floyd Mayweather.
And
my mom wants Floyd Mayweather.
And check this out. Michael Knox ends his interview by saying, obviously referring to Pacquiao, saying money is not the issue in our fight. So in other words, they're willing to take. I guess they pretty much signed, you know, a low end deal. Because
from what I've heard, yeah, from what I've heard, I mean, he's even taking less than the $40 million that Mayweather supposedly offered him a while ago. But we will see. If he did, more power to Pacquiao. In fact, Pacquiao gets more respect in that manner because this fight can get up to $200 to $300 million, and if he's getting only less than $40 million, he's kind of getting the screw job. But he's definitely helping the fans out, and we would appreciate it. So, either way, the fight. My fighting words for the night. I have a couple. One of which being that fans really shouldn't be all that excited if this fight happens now. And I have a article that's going to be coming out about it. But basically, think about it this way. Could have been much more fun 4 or 5 years ago. Both have kind of faded, and both are on their way out of the sport. Would have been much better to see the two go when they're a little bit more athletically capable. Don't get me wrong, still are, you know, the two best in the sport right now, but it's just not the same. It is a little dwindled. Another thing is something kind of that I wanted to echo off of something Rudy said earlier. Start like this. Arturo Gatti, Holyfield, Muhammad Ali, Joe Frazier, Diego Corrales, Ray Boom 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 Mancini, all these guys, what do they have in common? They don't have their O. They all lost. Stop with all you boxing fans. It pisses me off. Stop with the O. Nobody cares. You're putting on fascinating fights for the fans. That's all you should care about. The O means nothing. All that means sometimes, especially in Deontay Wilder's case, means you haven't fought nobody. That's my fighting words for the night. Rob?
My fighting words is Al Heyman for president. Those are my fighting words for the night.
I'll move to my three of it.
I can't even follow that up, man. I can't even follow it up. That was a good show. Thanks to all the listeners for listening in. I can't follow that up for Rob, but for Robert Alexander and Rudy Gutierrez, this was Tough Talk Tuesday. Check us out at www.heavy-bag.com. We'll see you again next week.